You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back. Joining me now, Bill Vickery, Republican strategist with Capital Advisors Group. Keith Ingram, former Democratic State Senator from the great state of West Memphis, Arkansas. Good to have you both here with us.
And a great sports fan.
Well,
and
I know we were just talking a bunch of Razorback sports and Memphis sports here before we got started. All right, we're going to turn our attention first to national politics in this first block right here. National political story of the year, the Trump comeback. He defeats Vice President Kamala Harris after Joe Biden drops out of the race after a disastrous debate right there. Where does this fit into the legend, Bill, of historic American politics?
Well, I will say this. He surpassed Grover Cleveland for having the most unique election cycle where a former president becomes president again. I don't know what to think of it, only because it's so unique. It's such a unique moment in time in American political history to have a former president really never leave the stage and be active for not necessarily good reasons, to be put on trial, to overcome that, to touch then on a mood in the country that I think is really sort of the idea of, we're sort of tired of the current administration and a lot of the policies, and let's move forward. That's what he did.
Was this a throw the bums out kind of election, Keith, in your estimation? Hey, we're tired of Biden, and Biden was a let's throw the bums out because we were tired of Trump, and Trump was a throw the bums out.
This election was lost on the Democratic side the day that President Biden decided to seek re-election. I mean, I think that, and I think it will hurt him in history. I think if he had not sought re-election, I believe that he would have be seen as a very bridge, had a successful presidency. I think it also robbed the Democratic Party of a pretty deep bench. I think if you look out there with the governors of Pennsylvania, Michigan, California,
Kentucky.
Others, Kentucky, the Democrats had a pretty deep bench that would have been pretty difficult. They would have run a really strong campaign. So, I think that he will look back. He got a lot of things done on infrastructure. He got a lot of things done with getting the COVID, dealing with the states, and getting the pandemic under control. But unfortunately, that's all going to be forgotten for how it ended.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. What do we expect in a second Trump term?
Well, I got to tell you, I'll be bluntly honest. I think we sit on the cusp of an American renaissance when it comes to business and when it comes to foreign policy. We've had an utter disaster in foreign policy because we've had an absence of foreign policy. When America retreats from the world stage, you see others fill it, and with not such good things. And so I think you're going to see a very clear American foreign policy. You're either with us or you're against us. And that clarity brings about a sense of stability and calm. That's important. We shouldn't overthink it. It's pretty simple.
I want to see if Keith has a disagreement with that, because America's been involved in Ukraine. We have been involved in the Middle East, and yet...
Not during the Trump administration.
Never did I think that I would see the Republican Party especially support Putin, and they have. I mean, Trump is obviously drawn to strong men government. I think that the work that Blinken has done, I think the work that the president has done behind the scenes, I think you have two completely opposite in that Trump is a showman. He's out front and projects, tries to project strength. But I think with Biden and Blinken, they do a lot of the work behind the scenes, and a lot of times you don't get credit for things that never happened because you took care of it before it became a problem.
Unfortunately, and I rarely disagree with my friend here, but unfortunately they have done a lot of work, and you see the disaster of the work that we have upon us, and that is the point that I'm trying to make, is that there is a confusion amongst who's very much in charge. Anthony Blinken has never had a job outside of his relationship with Joe Biden. And so his sort of management of foreign policy with this sort of give up first attitude has been disastrous because we have retreated from the world stage. And we did not have these kind of problems when Trump was president, precisely because he exuded strength. And we can talk about Putin all we want, but the idea is He invaded the island in Ukraine during the Obama administration. He invaded Ukraine, and a lot of it has to do with NATO. A lot of it has to do with NATO allies expanding closer to the Russian border. So it's a deeper issue. But I think that the president exudes a great deal of strength. The future president exudes a great deal of strength moving forward. I think that sets the tone for foreign policy.
All right. Let's talk about where Arkansas's influence is going to be in this new administration and the new Congress right here. Sitting pretty with Senator John Boozman, likely going to be the agriculture chair in the Senate. Replaced Blanche Lincoln, who was there 15 years ago. You've got French Hill winning, it looks like he'll win that House Financial Services Committee, a very powerful and influential seat, certainly something that the state's bankers will be supportive of. Bruce Westerman probably maintains his chairmanship over agriculture and forestry, some of the natural resources there. Tom Cotton, number 3 in the Senate in leadership. Is this going to be Arkansas's, I'll let you go first, Keith, is this going to be Arkansas's decade, or I guess 4 years to really shine?
Well, it depends on whether, and there are 3 of the 4 that you mentioned certainly have interest in the state of Arkansas. Bozeman's constituent services are excellent. He is engaged. Senator Cotton, to me, cares about national issues much more than he cares about the state of Arkansas.
He's the one that you're saying is not engaged.
Yeah,
right.
As far as day-to-day politics versus, he's sort of on a national level. I think that certainly the policies that were instituted, say in 2016, the tariffs with China, it's hurt our farmers. Our soybeans now, I think Brazil sells about, the majority of the
That's where the
crop.
market moved to.
Yeah, it moved to, and at the time before that, we sold 41% of the soybeans that China purchased. Now we're down to about 16 or 17%, and that's directly related to Trump's tariffs. And so hopefully Bozeman will be in a position to influence that so it doesn't hurt our Arkansas farmers.
Bill, what do you think of this Republican leadership from Arkansas on the national stage?
Yeah, I do think we really punch above our weight. Let's be blunt here. Every person that serves in the federal delegation really does. And Rick Crawford.
There's a history of that in Arkansas too.
Very
like
much
the Wilbur
is.
Mills and Fulbright.
Very much is. Although no one's fallen in the Potomac with any Argentinian exotic dancers, to my knowledge.
Well, not to your knowledge.
Not to my knowledge. Yeah, exactly. I'll say this. I like the fact that Tom Cotton's the number 3 man in the Senate. The good that he can and will do for the state of Arkansas from that perch is monumental and fantastic. And so I look forward to sort of reaping the benefits of that. I agree with you about John Boozman. I think he has a steady hand in terms of agriculture. I would say this. If farmers equated a hatred for the tariffs that Trump implemented, they sure didn't show it at the ballot box because he won East Arkansas overwhelmingly.
It's not the first time people have voted against their best interest.
Well, because the interests of the country oftentimes are the best interests for everybody. So I'll say this too about the House folks. I think it's critically important what French Hill is going to do. And then you look at what Congressman Westerman has done, what Steve Womack has already done. Right. And look, Rick Crawford he withdrew from the race to become Transportation Infrastructure Chair, but he is, as the second ranking Republican on that committee, has already had a great influence in terms of bringing in projects for Eastern Arkansas and sort of that the Memphis area that has such an impact on that part of the state that you know very well, better than I do.
30 seconds here, Keith. Just real quickly, farm bill politics still kind of up in the air at this point in time. It looks like maybe some financial relief will get out there for some of the farmers. What are you hearing from people in your end of the state? How dire is it?
Well, it's the farmers are obviously in a position of, if they have a bad crop, they go out of business. There is no cushion that is left. That cushion has been eaten up. But issues, education and rural health care are so important right now, and that's just not in Arkansas. That's across the country. People are moving to urban areas, and that's a big issue that Washington's got to help address.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back and talk state politics. After this, we got a legislative session coming up shortly. So I'm Roby Brock with Bill Vickery, Keith Ingram. This is Capitol View. Stick around.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back to the program. I'm with Republican strategist Bill Vickery of Capital Advisors Group, former State Senator Keith Ingram, Democrat of West Memphis. And we were explaining earlier there that you're an ex-state senator if you get beat at the ballot box. You're a former state senator if you leave on your own terms. You're a former.
No one beat this guy. No one whooped this guy. He did the whooping.
All right, legislative session coming up in January. We had Representative Brian Evans, the future Speaker of the House. We've had Senator Bart Hester, the returning Senate Majority Leader, coming, or Senate President Pro Tem, on in the last couple of weeks. Higher education is going to be big on the agenda. Keith, I'll come to you first. And you've worked on this policy before. Is it time to make some significant changes to the higher education funding formula, which is what legislators seem to want to do?
I think that formula funding needs to be addressed. There's no question about it. But also the money that is put into higher ed, what has sort of evolved across the country was that in 2008 with the recession, the easiest budgets that were to cut were state higher education budgets. And they did that, and they've just never restored it. You take Arkansas, probably, I'm going to guess in, Bill, maybe 2008, we were probably 80% funding the university, and we're probably down now to around state funding about 60%. So I think it not only needs the formula rework, there needs to be additional dollars committed, and it's one thing or another. They're going to raise tuition, or we're going to have to support our schools with tax dollars more. That's just, it's pretty simple.
Your thoughts on higher ed?
Well, I'll say this man has forgotten more about higher education funding and the formula associated with it than I know. So, and I don't think this is a partisan issue. This is just one of those meat and potatoes issues that we as a state have to tackle. I will say, I do have a lot of faith in Brian Evans as the Speaker of the House and Bart Hester on the Senate side. I think these are two sort of pragmatic businessmen who understand goal accomplishment, who work together. I think on issues like this, like I said, it's not a partisan issue. It becomes an issue of folks just working together to solve problems.
Yeah, K through 12 going to be another topic that we will hear some more about. I mean, the governor to get her Learns Act passed despite Keith's objections to it last time around. But I feel like she'll build out a little bit more on that. Bill, I'll come to you first on this. What do you expect her to come, just tweaks, or do you think that we might see something major again? Because there's been some discussion of changing that funding formula as well.
I rarely make 100% predictions, but I can say with 100% that when kids go to school next September, they will not take their cell phones in the classroom. I think that we're going to have a policy that's going to eliminate that, and then we're going to measure whether that has a true impact or not. I tend to think that it probably will, but I do know that's coming. I think some other issues like that surround sort of the enhancement of the education experience are probably going to be dealt with as well.
I remember when you took your bag phone to class with you right there, and Keith, I think you were on one of those party lines. You were on you took your party line.
Party lines was a wonderful thing.
What do you see happening on?
Well, I think that very rarely do you bring together superintendents and teachers against something, and I think as this time moves on, this Learns Act is going to be extremely costly, and that there is not going to be the desired results. The other states that have tried this, it hasn't worked. I think that, I used to always say in the budget, you establish your priorities. In maternal health care, we're the worst in the country, and the governor put $13 million in her budget for maternal health care while putting $187 million into vouchers. I think that's going to be a problem as it goes forward. I don't think there is anybody, including anybody on the governor's staff, can tell you in 3 years how much money this is going to cost the budget. It's going to be escalating, and it's going to take away from other things.
Well, they'll make a prediction as to how much it is, because they got to submit a budget, and legislators will be working on some stuff too. So, because on year 3, the vouchers become universal. So anyone at that
there's no cap on it.
And there's no cap on that. I tend to think that they might shrink the size of what they give if there's too much demand on that. So they may not give the full $7,000 or $8,000. They may do something like that. We'll just see, because there's only a finite amount of money. Are we going to get tax cuts, Bill?
I don't think that we'll see income tax cuts in this legislative session. I think probably there's already been an indication. We'd like to wait and see how the year plays out. We can come back in a fiscal, which is one of the nice benefits of the fiscal every other year, dealing with something like that. So I tend to think we're going to see that happen after a legislative session closer to the end of the calendar year. On the education side of things, though, let me just say this. And we have kids locked into failing schools and failing situations. And I don't think it's wrong to try something to get them out of that we, for many decades, forced everyone to hold on to the bottom rung of the ladder all the same way, and we didn't let folks try to achieve. And at least I think we have an environment now where that's the case.
Yep,
that's a nice thought, but it doesn't prove out in the numbers of students that are in failing schools that are taking advantage of this. This is a subsidy that people that were already going to private schools are. You're going to watch this continue to go up. And I've had good friends of mine that that are conflicted, that are professionals and are concerned about, they've got their children in private schools. Should I really take this money because I really know what it would do for our public schools? It's unfortunate that we didn't take the money. It's in the first time in our generation, Bill and Roby, you and I, that the state actually had enough money to make a difference in education, but we chose not to put it in our public schools. We chose to divert some of it for other reasons.
All right, let's talk about Medicaid. It'll be another big issue. It's a big budget issue. I'll just put this out front there. For every 1 percentage point that the feds do not spend in Arkansas on Medicaid for the match rate, it's about $63 million. So if you go from 75% to 74% federal match rate, the state's picking up $63 million. And I am told, we've come down from 75, that we're going to hit somewhere a little north of 69% in this next fiscal year. So you can do the math on 63 million.
And that's a good deal, bad deal, because
right.
the state's economy's doing better, which brings
when personal incomes rise is kind of what that's tied to. So we hear from Senator Hester. I've heard from Representative Evans, who has a different point of view, that Senator Hester thinks that the system's being fleeced by all these billions of dollars that where the state's having to put back in. Representative Evans has a different take on that. But why do you think that we struggle, Keith, with funding Medicaid at the level that we need to? Why, if people are doing better, and we're still struggling with the amount of money that we need to keep healthcare, hospitals, those systems healthy?
Well, I think it's a number of things, but primarily, utilizing that money matching against federal dollars is foolish not to take advantage of all that you can. For example, only state in the country that the postpartum maternity care, that we're not doing that in Arkansas versus any other state, but we're spending 70, out of a dollar. All we have to do is put up, 69 or
30.
I mean, 30,
yeah, right,
my math, 30. You can tell my higher
okay.
education.
That's okay, that's okay.
But we're only having to put up 30%. I think the bigger concern, quite honestly, about Medicaid than that is if the federal government makes any changes in the Medicaid program. As you know, ours is set up that's got a trigger that would kill our program, and we would have to re-engage to try to do Medicaid expansion.
Your thoughts on that?
It's always difficult. Those kind of programs, I mean, the one constant that you see in every state and throughout the nation then, of course, is that you kind of have the 80-20 problem, that you got about 20% of the participants chew up about 80% of the benefits, and you got the vast majority of people who need the program, but who use it sparingly, but engage and get in and get out, but need it to be there when they need it. So how do you craft a program that still provides for those folks who are being judicious, and yet is still you still have to be able to take care of the 20% over here that are just gobbling up all the services.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that Senator Hester would worry about the Medicaid program being fleeced, but doesn't worry about the millions of dollars in the Education, the LEARNS Act. There's no fleecing, of course, in that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you and Senator Hester take that up, because I got a feeling you're going to get invited to his office for coffee, and he won't spill it on you, though. I don't think so.
Don't let them kid you. They know each other.
I know. All right, I got to wrap it up there. Thank you, gentlemen, both for participating. Bill, Keith, thank you both. Let's have you guys back during the session too, and for some commentary as well. All right, thank you, fellas. We are back with more right after this.